Thank you very much and good evening. This issue is not nearly as complicated or complex than any of you seem to understand. I do have one question, which has nothing to do with my report as state legislator, but it does have something to do with how I feel about the Open Public Meetings Act. If there is a law on the books in the state of in the township of Teaneck that says waivers cannot be paid, are you saying, Mr. Rupp, as the township attorney, that you cannot give an opinion on that, that that's a matter of attorney-client privilege?
Senator, first of all, you're on good and welfare.
You're addressing the council.
Second of all,
Through you, Madam Mayor, I am putting that question to the township attorney.
This matter in closed session with the council. That's where my comments will be delivered. Any member of the council that has a question of me in closed session can ask that.
Well, I hereby make an Oprah request for the minutes of that closed session as it pertains to whether or not Teaneck is legally allowed to pay the waivers that they have been paying since 2008. Having said that,
you should know that Oprah does not cover closed session minutes of attorney-client privilege.
I am making an Oprah request for
Can I
the
have-
minutes of that meeting. You can correct me or not correct me. That's my Oprah request. Now I would like to go into the issue of the waivers. It is a very, very simple, and I am working on a new bill, which was one of the reasons that I wanted to come before you tonight. Because in the past, I've actually written to you, but as usual, I don't get a reply, to say when I have issues of import, since you don't have work sessions, if I let you know in advance, perhaps we can arrange some kind of a work session so that I don't take away from the public's good and welfare. But I never got a reply to that letter, but there's nothing unusual about that. First of all, let me point out how the school board does it in Teaneck. They have a very simple form. It explains the law in this little teeny tiny box. This is the form that is used by the Teaneck School Board. Compliments to them. I'll give it to you in a moment after I read it. It is for an employee to fill out. I waive my right to elect the medical and prescription plan offered by the Teaneck Board of Education. The waiver amount, and this is what the law says, the waiver amount is based upon the cost of a plan that is waived, minus the employee contribution, had the employee not waived coverage, multiplied by 25%. So in other words, what the law allows is very clear. You don't need charts or anything else. The law says, let's say a policy is worth $15,000, I'm making up figures, and the employee must pay, depending upon the employee's salary, up to 35% of the premium. So the savings to the taxpayers, you minus whatever it is the employee pays, and then you're only allowed 25% of that savings. That's how the Teaneck School Board does it. But the Teaneck Council came up with some kind of a crazy scheme that if you were here before 2010, that's not how the school board does it. School board does it exactly the way I told you. The law prior to 2010 allowed 50% of the savings. And I had a very lengthy meeting with the town manager. He was very forthcoming with all the information a number of weeks ago. Teaneck takes the attitude, anybody who was here before 2010, employee or elected official that qualifies, gets 50% of the whole premium. not of the savings, of the whole premium, on the basis that before 2010, employees didn't have to contribute. So employees are now getting 50% of whatever the whole premium is, which is going up and up each year, $28,000, $30,000. And what I found most unsettling was every time the premium goes up, the employees who are getting 50% are getting an increase of 50% of that increase in the premium. So the waiver is increasing every time the premium goes up. Now, I point out the Teaneck School Board, if we want to talk about treating employees fairly and squarely. Sorry, I have to look this.
We'll charge you for that.
Thank you, thank you. I just ended the public session.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. The Teaneck School Board does not pay to employees prior to 2010 this 50%. So they're watching out more closely for the taxpayers. The waivers were offered on the basis that if you had other health insurance and you chose not to take the public employees' health insurance, you were obviously saving taxpayer money. But the state was very careful and spells it out very easily, 25% of the savings. That's all you're entitled to give under the law that was passed in 2010. So that's a pretty easy mathematical program to figure out. What's the premium? What's the employee, for those who decide to waive, what would their payment be, and what's 25% of that? But instead, you've kind of allowed this thing to grow by taking, well, before 2010, you were allowed to do this. So we'll give you 50% of the whole premium. We're not subtracting what you would be paying were you in the public health benefit plan.
We're so clear, I don't need that.
Oh, good, thank you very much. I am looking into changing the law. We have a bill up. We had a bill up in front of committee where we had a hearing supported by the League of Municipalities and the School Boards Association, which would do away with waivers for public employees who are covered by more than one public health benefits plan. In other words, the taxpayers would pay for one health benefit plan per family, and waivers would be done away with. I'm trying to figure out permeations where that could end up costing more money than it would save, which is why I've met with the NJEA, with the school boards, and a variety of other people. That bill will be heard in committee on Thursday. We will have plenty of time after that to decide to amend it before it goes to the floor for a full vote. I would greatly appreciate hearing from the Teaneck Council on what changes they would like to see in this whole bill. So with all due respect, Councilman Pruitt, this is a really easy thing to figure out. In fact, the manager gave me a list of all the employees who are getting waivers. So all you have to do is figure out what the amount of the premium is and what's 25% of that savings, not to exceed $5,000. Why the auditor didn't find out that we had a law in the books that didn't allow this to begin with, you'll have to take that up with your auditor. I have no idea. But certainly, I really have a problem that we can't find out something that seems pretty clear-cut. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have a license. So those were the major issues. I did see the so-called survey that was sent out to the employees as to whether or not they would enroll in the state health benefit plan if the waiver was taken away. Of course, it neglects to mention that if they enroll in the state health benefits plan, they will now pay, under the law, up to 35% of the premium. It is no longer free. That was the law that was imposed in 2010, almost 6 years ago. But again, Teaneck chose, through, I don't know how, because I couldn't find the resolution that authorized to continue for this two-tier prior to 2010, after 2010 resolutions. So I think you have to look at your own way you have put this together. I'd be happy to answer any questions or get any input about the pending legislation that would do away with these waivers at the expiration of a labor contract, et cetera.
Senator Weinberg, thank you for enlightening us. I just have a quick question. Is the healthcare benefit, the 35%, is that going to sunset in 2017 or no?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, is it what?
Is it sunsetting in 2017 or no?
It is not. That continues on, that was the big part of the big pension and health benefit reform package that we passed back in 2010, which was supposed to help with our health costs and our pension costs, but the rest.
Sorry, there was a sunset provision in that it was going to stop. Was it
Yeah,
extended?
oh, yes, there will be you're absolutely right, thank you. It will become, there is a time where it will become subject to a negotiation, the cost of health benefits, but it would begin with the floor.
It wasn't initially in 2010. It was
I'm
not,
sorry.
I said in
Yes,
2010.
it's in the initial law that it will eventually go back if we get all this straightened out. My instinct is it will probably be extended, or if it went into negotiation, it would be negotiated from that floor of 35%, which has been set.
Question is,
Just let the council know that the current law is scheduled to sunset and to render healthcare negotiable as of the last day of December 31st, 2016.
That's what I thought.
okay,
2017.
the current law is 25% of the savings.
Of the savings. The prior law was 50% of the
Okay,
savings.
but I'm saying,
Yeah.
we threw something out from 1988 and then 2010. What takes precedence is what's happening now. If the law changes, we have to go with the law as it changes, not something that was 20 years old.
Let me explain. The law was always permissive. It does not mandate that you give any waivers. It is permissive. It's allowable.
Yeah.
There is no mandate in the law prior to 2010 or after 2010 that requires that you give waivers. It was a permissive tool to the municipalities and the counties. I have not found too many that do it, by the way. Some do. County does not give waivers, County of Bergen does not give any waivers to its 4,000, 3,000 employees. They get the health benefits, and they don't get any waivers to refuse those health benefits.
All right, so your recommendation is that we look at the employers that we have and see what 25% of the savings could be under $5,000.
Up to $5,000, correct. Except you have this group of employees that you interpreted the law, if they were here before 2010, that you could continue giving them 50% of what amounts to the whole premium. So you have to address, which is why some employees are getting so much and other employees are getting less, depending upon when they came to work here.
So we would have to change the law in Teaneck.
Well, the
To
law
not
in
let those
Teaneck
people-
doesn't allow you to pay waivers, so you'd have to start out with passing a law that does allow you to pay waivers.
Okay.
The way I understand it, you've been paying these waivers, and I don't think the employees did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Somebody overlooked this. But the fact is, you have a law on the books which says you will not pay waivers. And somehow, that law was overlooked, and you passed a resolution which authorizes waivers, and then left out there unaddressed the prior 2010, 50% of what amounts to the whole premium. And Mr. Broughton gave me this information quite willingly. And every year when the premium goes up, the employee who's waiving the health insurance is getting 50% of the increased premium.
So we have the option to change that as a
Yes.
township.
Exactly.
Councilman Sullivan.
And by the way, the law also said this cannot be in a labor negotiation. This is not negotiable. The law that allows the waivers very clearly says it may not be part of a labor negotiation.
Senator Weinberg, again, thank you for your information. Again, it is very, very clear from reading the statutes that the law is permissive, that this is an opportunity that the legislature has offered to municipalities and other governing bodies to offer that. We have not yet taken action on that, and we need to look at what our options are. The fact is that this is rather uncommon, as you point out, in the public sector. It is almost completely and totally non-existent in the private sector. As an example, the city of New York offers $1,500 to individual employees for waiving the benefit, $3,000 for waiving family coverage. There are benchmarks that we can use that offer an adequate incentive. You asked about the auditor. God bless Bowman. Dan DeGangi deserves credit for catching the fact that we were not calculating the waivers correctly for post-2010 waiver employees. And we caught that we were paying $17,000 in waivers above and beyond what would have been authorized by state law if we had been doing that. And I think the question of why didn't we catch this is an auditor is looking at violations of statute. It's looking at violations of the administrative code. An auditor is not sitting down municipality by municipality and going through the administrative code of that municipality and looking at the township code and seeing where there are violations.
The comment in the auditor's report, the auditor, the only error noted was the 17 employees that were receiving waivers after 2010. Correct?
No, the auditor said you had 17 employees that were hired after 2010 who were getting in excess of $5,000.
Yes, but the employees that were receiving waivers prior to that time, there wasn't anything wrong with that finding. So Teaneck was in compliance with the law. There was a new law, and I just have to say it wasn't a scheme as you indicated.
It wasn't what, I'm sorry?
You indicated that it was a scheme that Teaneck came up with. I don't believe that anybody sat in a room and
That might be a
decided.
poor choice of
Yeah,
words. I
and
will
decided to come
apologize
up with
if I intimated
providing
anything.
waivers
Right.
to certain groups of employees. The way that I understood it to be is like other state laws. For example, the law that says that an elected official can't hold dual offices. Some elected officials still do hold dual office
Two of
because they
them.
were exempt. But they were exempt. So I thought that this is a similar type situation where employees fell into or opted out at a time when they could receive the 50%. Like when employees get hired under certain contracts. Some employees get different benefits based upon the contract that they were brought under. But I am not opposed to looking at it, saving the taxpayers'
Let me
money.
be clear. It is all permissive. It's the way you decided, I don't mean you personally, but whoever, the council or your administration collectively, decided to put this two-tier in of the prior 2000. And I pointed out because the school board doesn't do that. Of course, they have employees who were there prior to 2010.
Did you do it
But,
prior?
but
I was
all
just
of their
curious.
employees, and when I checked today with the NJEA, who came with some other issues, they said that as far as they know, no school employee gets the 50% prior, they're all working under the post-2010 law of 25% of the savings.
Councilman Castle?
Thank you, Mayor. Senator Weinberg, I just want to ask a couple of very simple questions just so that I can get a very clear picture. The statute gives Teaneck the option of paying these waivers, correct?
Right,
So it's nothing that's mandated, it's our sole discretion.
right.
The statute states that if we do allow this, it gives us a calculation that says it's either 50% of the savings or $5,000, whichever is less.
And since 2010, it's 25% of the savings,
Okay, so
not to exceed $5,000.
not to exceed $5,000. Okay. Based on your research, our township code says that we are not even at liberty to pay these waivers.
Correct.
Okay.
And the attorney can't correct me because it's attorney-client privilege.
So,
So you'll have to take my reading of the law.
yeah, but if you
Thank you.